Thank you. So if we're all set, I will call this meeting of the Development and Operations Services Standing Committee to order. Today we acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. We are thankful to share in the special spirit of this place, rich in the energy of Mother Earth, our ancestors, and the love of all creation. May I have an motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Hanlon, Mayor Saunderson, all in favor? That is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, if during this meeting it develops that you do have an interest, please let us know. Is there any business arising from the previous meeting? Seeing none. Then we will move on to the first staff report, P 2019-33, to discharge the site plan control agreement, Wildwood Cove, the remnant lands, 11616 Highway 26. And if I can ask the Director of Planning to come forward with that report, please, or highlights of that report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report before you for your consideration is a report of an administrative nature dealing with the discharge of an old site plan agreement on lands at 11616 Highway 26, which is lands roughly across from the Cranberry Trail area on the north side of Highway 26. These are the lands that were the subject of the Wildwood Cove condominium project. As part of the planning for that project, the applicant offered to convey the environmentally designated lands. Could you go to the next slide, please, Adam? They're shown roughly in this image here, an area totaling about 5.4 hectares to be protected and conveyed to the Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy. In order to effect that transfer, this old site plan agreement, which dealt with a hotel, is an obscure site plan agreement that was discovered by one of the solicitors dealing with the land transfer, has to be discharged from the lands. So effectively this report simply allows that transfer to occur unimpeded.
Thank you. So I will read out the motion or the staff recommendation, and then I will ask for any public comment. So the recommendation is that staff report P 2019-33 be received and council authorize the discharge of a site plan control agreement from the remnant lands in the Wildwood Cove project located at 11616 Highway 26. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Mayor Saunderson, Councillor Hamlin. Are there any comments from the audience? Mr. Pretty, please come forward.
Hi, I rent a room in town and I'm an active trail user. I'm having trouble reading this map. What lands is the blue, the permanent protected lands, or is the green the lands in question?
Director Farr?
Adam, maybe if you could flip to the other slide. Through you, Madam Chair, it's the non-developed lands on the left-hand side of the image. The lands on the right are now occupied by a condominium development.
Okay, so to the right of the road going towards the water?
That's right. So
that's the one.
It includes shoreline and
just that section. That's awesome. That's because of the owner decided to donate the land to NEC.
Through you, Madam Chair, the owner decided to dedicate the environmentally designated lands to a group called the Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy, who is a group. It's a group that acquires lands to be kind of held in public trust. They allow some limited public access throughout those lands.
Okay, that's nice.
Thank you. Are any other comments from the audience? Okay, I'll turn it over to Standing Committee. Any comments from Standing Committee? Councillor Hamlin, Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, through you to our Director of Planning. I understand that some inquiries were made of the EBC as to the potential for a trail or other public uses on those lands, and I was wondering if you could please share that with us.
Through you, Madam Chair, Councillor Hamlin. Yes, as, in a way, as a kind of condition of conveyance of the lands to the Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy, the owner of the Wildwood Cove development wanted assurance that the residents and residents in general would have access to the property. The Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy is enthusiastic and supports the principle, including in their mandate, of public access. So there will be a component here of a coastal trail, there'll be a walking path. There's limits that they don't allow motorized vehicles, horses or bicycles, and there's an overall sensitivity to the sensitive environmental features of the lands.
Thank you. It's very exciting.
Thank you. Mayor Saunderson?
I was just going to comment, this is a very generous gift and a good news story for Collingwood that prides itself on we pride ourselves on our trail system and our sense of place and environmental stewardship. So it's a great news story.
Thank you. Thank you, and I would agree, absolutely, it is a good news story, and EBC do some excellent work within the entire escarpment, so going down toward Lake Ontario and up toward the Tobermory area, so it is very exciting, and the fact that there will be public access is terrific for the whole community. I have a question. It's not quite germane to the staff report, but seeing as we are on the matter of Wildwood, I was by the property recently and noticed that the boulevard I guess it would be the lands adjacent to Highway 26 it is grassed, but it does not appear to be irrigated, and I'm wondering, is it not a matter of course that developments are required to provide irrigation on their landscape portions of their properties?
So, Madam Chair, we'll review the terms of the approval and relevant agreements, and incidentally, staff have a meeting with the proponent, owner, developer of that project in the coming weeks, and we'll bring this matter up with them and get some response from them and report back to you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so seeing that there's no further discussion or questions, all in favor of the staff recommendation, and that is carried unanimously. Working on to the next item, staff report P 2019-34, Monaco Development, 263 Huron Ontario Street and 1 Hume Street. And I will ask Director Farr to address that report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you could move the slide, please, Adam. This is a site plan report dealing with a site plan agreement related to hoarding and encroachment agreements for a project known generally as the Monaco condominium. It's located at 263 Huron Ontario Street at the corner of Huron Ontario and Hume Streets. And generally, the project can be described as 6 stories. It includes 127 dwelling units, ground floor commercial, 260 parking spaces, including 177 underground and 83 at grade. This site plan has been completed in accordance with an approved official plan zoning bylaw amendment and amendments to the Heritage District Plan bylaw, all of which were approved in 2012. They're quite specific, and the site plan that is on agreement that's in front of you today is based on the detailed work that was worked through the public process associated with those approvals. As this a project has taken quite a while to come to fruition at the site plan stage, I thought it would be helpful just to briefly touch on the project history for the benefit of members of committee and the members of the public. On this site in 2008, there was an Ontario Municipal Board settlement regarding an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment and site plan for a 5-story building. In 2012, an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and amendment to the Heritage District bylaw was passed by council through a public process. Those approvals form the basis of the framework within which this site plan that you're considering today was completed. It was filed in 2016. Could you go to the next slide, please, Adam? The site plan, like I said, contemplates there is a portion of the building that meets a 7th story to include an amenities space at the corner of Huron, Ontario and Hume Streets. It's an L-shaped building. It includes the full, I guess, half block of that parcel. Could you go to the next slide, please, Adam? It includes a landscaping component and an animated streetscape at the ground floor, including commercial development and elevations. Parking, as you can see, is set back internally within the site. So I wanted to draw incidentally some elevations. Could you please show those elevations? The elevations that you see, because there's been a number of questions about this, are very specific, and they're tied to the development approvals that were issued in 2012. So periodically there are questions about how did staff or the applicant arrive at the development concept that you see in front of you. This is all detail that was worked out in 2012. Can you go on the next slide, please, Adam? Again, another image from Hume Street. I wanted to draw to council's attention a number of late items on this file. We've been working closely with the developer and the applicant, and they have been working hard to meet the requirements of the municipality. There are a couple of issues that we were looking into, and the municipality, through my position, wanted to get greater clarity and certainty on those items. I wonder, Adam, if you could go to the file labeled access. The top right of the corner of the image you see right now, there's an access way off Hume Street. Part of that access is on the adjacent property. Are you able to find that slide? There it is. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to step up to the screen point. The hatched line that you see running across the top of the screen is the property line of the property on which the Wanaco development is situated. In order for there to be a functional access off Hume Street, a portion of the lands on the adjacent property are required. So you'll see the curve of the curb at the top of the screen and the curve just above this building. That's where vehicles will come in. A site plan dealing with a solution, so the site plan for this property, dealing with the solution that's dependent on another property, requires an easement over those lands for that access to be secure. So staff are in discussions with the applicant to gain confirmation of that easement. We believe it to be in place, but just as a sort of belts and suspenders approach, staff have asked for greater confirmation. And this has resulted in a minor change to the recommendation that you have in front of you tonight. Let's actually capture the recommendation you have in front of you tonight. Adam, could you go to the staff recommendation file? So working with the applicant, we arrived at some modest changes to ensure that committee and council had some certainty around these easements. We'll be working over the next week to ensure that the necessary easements are in place to ensure legal access over the adjacent lands are in place, and to address any other required intersite coordination. In addition, based on concerns from the community in terms of the development of adjacent lands, there are adjacent lands that sit on this block at the corner of Hume Street and St. Marie Street. Staff have gained an agreement with the proponent to enter into a development agreement. If you could scroll down, Adam, please. Enter into a development agreement over the next several days that would address concerns regarding the condition and maintenance standards of that vacant lot until such time it is the subject of site plan approval. So specifically, we have put a recommendation that council authorize entering into a development agreement that addresses the future maintenance and standards and condition of the vacant property at 1 Hume Street and lands as may otherwise be described to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Building Services. And I just note that in the recommendation it says lands as may otherwise be described only to provide certainty that the lands within the vacant lot owned by the current owner are the lands that would be subject to that development agreement. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. We'll just put the staff recommendation, the amended staff recommendation on the table then. I'll read it out completely. That the Development and Operation Services Standing Committee receive and refer the following recommendation to the next meeting of council. That staff report P 2019-34 be received and council enact and pass authorization bylaws to execute a site plan control agreement, encroachment agreement, and hoarding agreement subject to the necessary easements being in place to ensure legal access over the adjacent lands, including 1 Hume Street and any other lands as may be required to allow the proposed access to 263 Hurontario Street from Hume Street to function appropriately and address any other required intersite coordination. And further, that council authorize entering into a development agreement that addresses the future maintenance standards and condition of the vacant property at 1 Hume Street and lands as may be otherwise described to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Building Services. And the council herein approve discharging the site remediation agreement and return its securities in full, and approve to discharge the Section 37 agreement, the bonusing agreement, from the title of the Monaco property. May I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Hamlin, Deputy Mayor Hull. And I'll turn it to the audience. Is there anyone from the audience that wishes to comment on this staff report? Mr. Pretty?
I'm really curious about this land. I walk by the site every day, and from the original term, the Admiral Place, or I can't remember what the title was, there's a lot of history here. This building is interesting. It's unique. I think it'll be a really nice addition to the town for a lot of reasons, because people will be parked and living in this building, and therefore people will be connecting to the community. Question. Director Farr, sir, does this building outstretch to the corner of St. Marie and Hume? Is that cornering that section?
Director Farr?
Just trying to see, like, I don't understand the map.
Madam Chair, I'll just walk up to the screen and I can use
2 questions. Awesome, thanks.
This is Hurontario Street, Hume. This is St. Marie Street.
Oh, there it
There's
is.
a vacant lot here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So then it does go to St. Marie Street, like the corner. That's Market Street?
The project that is the subject of the site plan control agreement tonight does not go all the way to St. Marie. This is a separate property. It's essentially kind of mid-block
Oh, I
between
see.
St. Marie and Hurontario. This is a vacant parcel. was referenced in the recommendation.
Yeah, I understand. It's not as true as it seems. I understand. That's cool. With regards to this access point, because I did see that, like, is this underground parking or above ground parking?
There is a underground parking. Adam, could you go back to the site plan, please? Through you, Madam Chair.
It's an interesting property. Like, it'll be cool to see. I know it's taking time. It's just about time.
Through you, Madam Chair, regarding the question
Mhm.
about underground parking, 170 odd spaces are underground. At the top of the screen, you'll see a closely hatched image. That's the cover over the access to the underground parking garage.
All right, last question. How many units will be in this complex?
Through you, Madam Chair, this project proposes 127 residential units.
Okay. One more question, please. When will we see this, when will we see this project begin? When, like, you know what I mean? Like, is it sort of in 2 years' time, or? That's my last question.
Okay, and I believe the proponents are in the audience. Perhaps they can answer that question for us.
Lori Maynard from YYZ Project Management, where I'm speaking on behalf of my client. So the intent of the project is that hopefully we can get through council on the 22nd. The building permit's already been submitted, so we're intending on starting construction as soon as possible, hopefully in August. And then the duration of construction is going to be approximately 1.5 to 2 years. We have to give that time frame because obviously during construction something can happen, so 1.5 to 2 years.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience?
Madam Chair, my name is Raymond Niceforo, and I'm one of the principals at Monaco. We acquired the property, the Admiral, in 2017, and as you may know, we've been working hard at it for the last couple of years, and we're very proud of the success we've had. We want to thank council and the staff at Collingwood for all their help. We couldn't have gone this far without everyone. It's been there has been some hurdles along the way, let's say, but we're truly excited about what this means, not only for our team, but for Collingwood and for the years to come and the residents of Collingwood. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any comments from Standing Committee? Councillor Hamlin.
Yes, firstly, my comment is, I'm sure I am echoing the whole community. This is so exciting if it's for this to get start building on this, really. And I wanted to also thank the developer and our staff for working so hard today in coming up with the 2 conditions that our planning director went over with us. It was a great resolution. My question is, with respect to the second condition, dealing with the development agreement, and that's to address, I wrote down, future maintenance and conditions for the vacant property. I was wondering if we could have a look at, I think it was the very first slide. It showed the site and it also showed the undeveloped, the part will be undeveloped, yeah. So you can see, Madam Chair, the red part that's outlined is where the condominium project will be built. And then to the, I'll say right of it or to the east of it is the part of the block that remains. This site has been an eyesore for well over a decade in town. And I am really hoping that with the construction of the building, that the remaining part that's not being developed at this time will not continue to be an eyesore until the market justifies coming forward with the building for there. So hence the development agreement that our planning director spoke of today. On the site plan itself, it shows hoarding up as the landscape plan, or on the landscape plan, I guess, along that boundary line between the property where the condominium will be built and the undeveloped parcel. And I really just wanted to make a comment and offer it to our staff who are going to be dealing with this development agreement over the next week, and the developer who's sitting here, that it would be nice if our community did not have to look at hoarding as part of the landscape plan between the building itself project and the undeveloped parcel, and if something nicer could be on the boundary of those two pieces. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hanlon. Mayor Saunderson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I live on St. Marie Street and was there when the Admiral building came down, so I'm very much in support of this development moving forward, and to provide a nice bookend for our downtown core with Fram Shipyard's construction, so that it will vitalize our downtown core. Along the issues of what Councillor Hanlon has raised, I'm wondering, through you to Director Farr, if it would make sense, we are currently, as I understand it, are holding $35,600 in deposit or securities for the site of the actual construction site, but I'm wondering if there's some sense in tying that to the site plan or site agreement with the other lot, so that there's some security there to address issues should the other lot languish and not move forward. But I'm certainly in favor of getting this lot going, so I'm wondering if there is any wisdom in that type of approach.
Through you, Madam Chair, Mayor Saunderson, when we sit down and talk about the development agreement, the terms of that development agreement, we'll explore what securities might be appropriate, whether or not transfer of the existing securities makes sense, or drawing on new securities, or securities all in fact make sense for ensuring that development agreement. But the proponent's been quite willing, and so far in response to our questions about that, to work something out. So we're hopeful that we'll be reporting to council next week with an integral quality package that supports council's interests here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the Director. I apologize. I thought I knew this project reasonably well, and I'm a little confused. The rendering that was shown of the building itself as it relates to here Ontario and St. Marie, and the discussion that we're having regarding vacant property don't align. And I'm just wondering if we can get some clarification. That rendering there shows the building running directly up to St. Marie being on the east side of the property. Am I?
No.
That's the access
No, that's St. Marie, and then if you continue to move along, that vacant piece of land is 121 Hume Street. The building runs, this rendering shows the building running from here, Ontario, to St. Marie.
Director Farr?
Through you, Madam Chair, if that's the case, then it's an error. And Adam, could you go back to the site plan itself? The site plan depicts the true condition of the building, and that it travels halfway across that block and not to St. Marie. So apologies for confusion that would have resulted from that rendering.
Deputy Mayor Hall?
Thank you, but there's no apology needed. This is a rendering that's supplied by the developer. So I am a little concerned that we're looking at a project online that depicts one rendering and approving something else. So that being said, I was here in 2010 and very supportive to see the project go forward. So I make that comment and we'll carry along.
Thank you. And Director Farr, so I'll pick up on comments made by Mayor Saunderson in regard to the securities that are being held for site remediation. Am I to understand from this recommendation that the final approval for the site control agreement would be, and the discharge of the securities would be contingent upon a agreement as to maintenance standards for the vacant part of the property.
Through you, Madam Chair. Oh, sorry, Madam Chair. I'm just a little flummoxed because there's a question about when you collect securities, what's the appropriate use of those securities? These would have been securities collected for site remediation. So to the proposal that's in front of you with the conditions set out as they are is not linking the securities collected for site remediation to the development agreement. I would have to investigate whether or not that was possible. My preference, working with the applicant, knowing that this is a condition of council approval, would be to discuss with the appropriate securities for works that will ensure appropriate maintenance and control of the condition on that property would be. So it might be 35,000, it might be less, it might be more, but the recommendation that's written right now does not propose the extension or the release of those securities as being contingent on entering into the development agreement.
Okay, the reason why I asked was because, to the best of my recollection, when those securities were taken, it was on the understanding that the owner of the lands, I believe at the time, would fill in the excavation that was there, which was done, and also to hydroseed the entire property, which was not done. And so, and I certainly am in agreement with both Councillor Hamlin and Mayor Saunderson that going forward, if we're going to have a beautiful building on one side of that land, we certainly cannot look at a completely empty and unremediated piece of empty land beside it. And so I'm just wondering what we can do, or will that be part of your discussion?
I think, Madam Chair, I think that staff are interested in ensuring an appropriate solution there as the applicants in attendance at the meeting tonight, and they've offered up this solution. I think it might be appropriate for them to step forward and speak to the matter of securing the works that would be undertaken on the property. As this item has very recently come up, and I can't speak entirely on their behalf, so I think it would be appropriate to call upon them in this forum to do that.
Mr. Nisiforo?
Madam Chair, we're happy to come up with an agreement for that parcel. However, it is a different ownership group, so the ownership structure is different. That being said, the easements are in place, and we will provide that legal documentation if the town doesn't have that. But if we wanted to create an agreement for that parcel once construction was finished, and sort of to keep it, let's call it pretty until we understand the future, we can make those arrangements. We're okay with that. Right? We want to do that anyway to Monaco.
Right.
Yeah, so we're good, but I think that not understanding the legal process, I think Mr. Farr would have to create a different agreement specific to the subject lines that we're talking about. It's a different holding, if you will.
Okay, I think we might have understood that it was all the same ownership.
No, different. There's similar partners, but it's a different structure. So it would be, but we would happy to still entertain an agreement on that parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And notwithstanding all that line of questioning, I think I can also congratulate you very much for moving forward, and I think the entire community is very happy to see this project go forward as well. So if there are no further comments or questions, I'll call the vote on the staff recommendation as amended. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. moving on, next item is departmental updates. Are there any updates? No, Director McDonald, no?
None at this time.
Okay, seeing none. Are there any public delegations? Okay, seeing none of those. Other business? Councillor Hall, or sorry, Deputy Mayor Hall.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just wanted to make note that tonight, the two staff reports that came before this committee were co-written by the director and Trevor Houghton. And Friday, the 12th of July, was Trevor Houghton's last day with the municipality. And as many of you know, as others do around the table, we wear two hats within the community from a professional standpoint, I should say. And I mentioned to colleagues within my other profession that Mr. Houghton was leaving the municipality, and the first reaction was disappointment. But when then I mentioned that he was on to a better opportunity in terms of career advancement, and that he was simply traveling down the road to the Blue Mountains in Thornbury, that profession knows no boundary, and they were delighted to hear that. Because in the 18 plus years that Trevor was with the municipality, I might, like many others, relied on his candor, his guidance, his expertise, his professionalism. But one of the best things that I appreciated about Trevor, and will continue to, is if you asked him a question, you got an answer. There was no gray, it was black or white, and you knew where you stood. So tonight's the first night since his departure, and I just wanted to make reference to the fact that his good work was part of tonight's meeting, and I certainly, and I know that others would, wish him all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Okay, then I will, seeing if there is no other business, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hamlin, all in favor? None is carried. Thank you.